Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Joliet Junior College Board of Trustees meeting on Wednesday, February 17th, 2021 in U Building. Joan, would you call the roll, please?
Roderick? I can see her. Is she muted? She's there. She's muted. Trustee Broderick, you're muted. Garcia Guillen? Garcia Guillen? Mahalik? He can hear us? I don't think they can hear. He can hear us, but we can't hear them.
Yeah, you can see Garcia's.
Are you unmuted?
He's showing muted.
It's all Jim's fault. Jim.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you, yes.
Okay, I couldn't get myself unmuted. I'm unmuted now. Present.
Garcia Guillen? Mahalik?
Present.
Morales? Here. O'Connell?
Here.
Washington? Here. Wilkinson?
Here.
And Munro.
Here. I'd like to welcome everybody who came out in person or virtually tonight. It's cold, but it's getting better. At this time, how about student trustee Ian leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we start, we can hardly hear you guys. You guys are really soft on the volume.
Okay, we'll try to fix that, Jake.
Okay, that's better.
Coming in louder, Bob.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
that sounds better.
Okay. Next time is 1.0.5 public comments. Does anybody have, Joan, is there anybody here that wants to speak with a public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I did not receive any requests in writing.
Hi. Hi, I would like to speak.
And this is who?
This is Dr. Cornell Darden Jr., President and CEO of the Southland Black Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I know he didn't submit an application or a request for public comment, but it's the chair's discretion as to whether or not you'd like him to provide his public comment.
Okay, Cardinal, you've got 2 minutes, just like everybody else. Go for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board of Trustees, for allowing me to speak tonight. I had a few things that I wanted to mention. I did see you were having some IT issues. We have some very qualified Black businesses in Will County that can help with that. We did notice that the numbers for minority contracting at the college are still god-awful. To my knowledge, there was a FOIA request that was recently done that showed that there were 0 contracts given to minority businesses from the college, and that's just an abysmal thing. We are calling for President Judy Mitchell to step down immediately. She needs to resign and go and leave our college. And when I say our college, I'm talking about the citizens of Will County, including the Black citizens who are being continuously discriminated against. We should not pay to be discriminated against. We should not have our tax dollars go to people who were discriminated against us with those tax dollars. President Mitchell has had a history in that procurement department and finance department of hating and discriminating against Black people. We've actually witnessed bid tampering in which that was covered up. Roxanne Venegas was a part of that bid tampering and was in tears at a meeting when that was called out, and that person was in tears because she thought she was going to be fired. I don't think she thought that the president's administration was going to cover it up for her. So the president needs to resign right away. We were made aware that she was planning on resigning by December 31st. We do not want to stand by another day and be discriminated against all the way until December 31st of 2021. Also, there's a county board member, Ms. Broderick, who has shown has broken the law with also electioneering on campus, which is a flagrant violation. We actually exposed that. No one did anything. And now, just recently with the Capitol incident in D.C., the comments that were made needs to be reprimanded. So that's all I had. I will resume and reach out to the board at a future date. But the president needs to resign, and Maureen Broderick needs to be reprimanded. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. All right. Any other public comments? Virtual comments? If not, there are some public comments which I was asked to read. The first one, I don't know if these are good or bad here, these things. From Joliet Junior College Social Justice Club. Dear Board of Trustees, please accept this statement on behalf of the Social Justice Club. We share and stand in solidarity with our fellow JJC student organizations regarding unacceptable comments made by Trustee Broderick regarding the insurrection on January 6, 2021. As a JJC board member and representative of the college, it is her responsibility to uphold the core values of this institution at all times and in all respects of her career. The comments made by Trustee Broderick are in violation of our civil rights. We as students feel disrespected and feel that we have been confronted by another act of abuse of power by a higher position of this institution. Gracious comments are unacceptable and destructive to this institution and are impeding our educational experience at JJC. It is necessary that the public actions be reprimanded appropriately with consideration to the marginalized groups that are negatively affected. To Joliet Junior College, the insensitive comments like these are brought to your attention. You must pay attention and take action. Please do better. Sincerely, Joliet Junior College Social Justice Club. The next public comment is from Latinos Unidos members and friends. Dear Board of Trustees, we would like to take this opportunity to share our feelings about the remarks that occurred with Trustee Broderick after the insurrection attempt on our Capitol building on January 6, 2021. Her comments while expressing her right to free speech through her personal Facebook account were false and spread lies about individuals and subscribe to the BLM movement. Just because someone has free speech, it does not come without consequence. As students of color, we are offended and disappointed that someone that sits on our Board of Trustees and makes decisions about our student body holds these false opinions about groups of people of color and tries to lay blame for such an act of violence that threatens our nation's democracy. We believe her comments go against the values of Joliet Junior College promotes as an institution. As students of color, her comments were inappropriate and make us question if she has our student best interest at heart. It makes us question if she is capable of making decisions about the college's policies and procedures in an objective manner that would impact students and staff of color negatively. We as students have already suffered an emotional mental trauma of another predominant JJC leader whose personal feelings and prejudice impacted the student body. Going forward, we are just one among several other campus organizations that will be very observant and vocal about all actions conducted by the JJC Board of Trustees. As an institution that proclaims diversity as a core value, we continue to see that our institution as an institution continue to demonstrate actions that go against that very value. This is why students of color continue to feel unwelcomed and unsafe on our own college campus. JJC Board of Trustees, we need to do better. Sincerely, Latinos United members. Okay. The next is from JJC Allyship Group. The Joliet Junior College Allyship Group is a coalition of concerned JJC faculty and staff established in response to recent events on campus that were detrimentally affecting people of color and the JJC community. The mission of the Allyship Group is to challenge racial inequities and injustices affecting JJC employees and students of color and provide greater inclusion and understanding. In light of our mission, we are compelled to respond to the comments JJC Board of Trustee member Maureen Broderick recently made on social media. The role of a trustee is defined as someone who is trusted to act in the best interest of a beneficiary. Trustee Broderick's comments regarding the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol were prejudiced and racially tinged. The comments negatively impacted the beneficiaries, the students of JJC, that Trustee Broderick swore to protect as an elected official. As a faculty and staff, we work immensely to secure the trust and well-being of our students. We take extra measures to be inclusive, welcoming, and be attentive to their needs. However, when actions such as these ones Trustee Broderick engaged in occur, they break the foundation we have established with students. It creates mistrust and it tarnishes the reputation of JJC. The JJC Allyship Group requests this statement be read in public record and that the Board of Trustees of Joliet Junior College censure Trustee Broderick so that the record of her incendiary comments are documented as beliefs that are detrimental to JJC students and employees and not in keeping with the mission and values of the college. Sincerely, JJC Alley Group. Okay, we have one more from on behalf of the Black Student Union. The statements made by Trustee Maureen Broderick directly impact the integrity of the relationship between students and administration. Trustee Broderick's device rhetoric is a continuation of verbal misconduct affecting student safety and trust. We believe her statements are beyond reproach and are becoming a common theme within this administration. As students, this is not the first nor second time that we have taken time away from our education to address statements made by individuals in positions of power. Racist beliefs do not align with the core values of our institution. BSU, Black Student Union, will hold the Joliet Junior College administration accountable for perpetuating systematic racism. We implore your administration to carry out their statement made on June 17, 2020. Joliet Junior College stands in solidarity with the Black community. Black Lives Matter. Thank you for your comments, JJC Black Student Union. That is the end of the public comments.
Chairman Wunderlich, I'd like at some point to have continued conversation. There's some things that are very concerning to me that were brought up today in public comment, and I'd like to have an opportunity to have a discussion with spirit of transparency about some of the things brought up by Mr. Darden. I, of course, you're the chairman. You have to address the concerns about Vice Chair, Trustee Broderick. So that's something that you will need to, as our leader, I'm trusting that you will address that, or we will handle it accordingly. So at some point, maybe in new business, we can talk about some of the issues about Ms. Venegas. I have no knowledge. Sometimes things happen at certain levels at the top. We don't even hear about these things. I don't know what he's talking about, something about Ms. Roxanne Venegas. Maybe you know what that's about, but,
You know what, I think we can talk about that in
Under
executive
executive session.
okay, thank you. Yeah, and this is, communication, because when we have to hear things through public comment,
Mhm.
it concerns me that we're not hearing everything.
Mhm.
So if we can talk about that later, thank you.
Sure.
Moving on, next. Item 1.1.1, bond refunding presentation.
I would like to, Jeff, would you like to come to the podium and introduce Dan Spears from Spear Financial? Thank you. So I invite Jeff Heap, our controller, to the podium.
Good evening. Basically, as a continuation from the workshop, I guess, 3 weeks ago, where we talked about possible bond refunding, asking Dan Forbes to kind of walk through a presentation on some of the options, and then we'll kind of circle back. We have a recommendation for the board to consider.
Okay, Dan is, right, he's virtual.
Dan should be online, hopefully. You online,
Yes.
Dan?
Yeah, can anyone or can everyone, I hope, hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Do you have the presentation, Jim?
Yeah. He's not presenting.
So as the presentation's being put up, I just want to say it's good to talk with you again. And as Jeff introduced us, we're Spear Financial, we're the bond financial advisor to the college. And one of our responsibilities is to bring refinancing or refunding options to the college. Jeff and I have worked together on the option I'll be talking about tonight. I've got to say, Jeff deserves the credit for really developing it into something that I think is worth considering. So kudos to Jeff. On page 2 of the presentation, if that's up, these are just the slides and items I'm going to talk about. Just as background, keep in mind there were 2 objectives that we were looking at. Number 1 was to make sure we considered refunding to produce bond savings, debt service savings for the college. And second, to more closely align the dedicated tuition revenues to the debt service on bonds related to those tuitions or relating to those particular bond series. So to that end, I'm going to talk the first 3 points about the tuition-backed bonds and the projected revenues and how that ties to outstanding debt service, and then how it might tie to the refunded debt service. I'm going to describe a little bit about the refunding bonds, what they would look like, what the debt service savings may come from those bonds. I will then ask very briefly about whether the college should consider issuing taxable refunding bonds to do or achieve the savings today, or wait a couple of years and do a possible tax-exempt bond refunding, which would be the first time that would be available, would be in 2 years. And then there would be a refunding and timeline that we'll talk about briefly. So on page 3 or slide 3, these are the tuition-backed bonds and their call dates. When you look at these 4 series of bonds, what you want to, when you're looking at them for savings, you want to look at call dates that are in the relative near future. So the bond issues that stand out are the 2012 A's and the 2013 B's, especially the 2013 B's. The outstanding average interest rate on the 13 B's is 5.2%, and on the 2012 A's, it's about 3.25%. On slide 4, this is a slide I think you might have seen before at the last meeting. This just shows in the middle column the projected tuition revenues available to pay the related bond debt service. And this slide shows, again, under the 4th column, total bond cost. That's your outstanding debt service for your bonds as of today, if we do absolutely nothing. The last column shows that there is a surplus or deficit, obviously a deficit for the cost of the bonds. The debt service is higher or greater than the total revenue. On slide 5, this is one of the options that I want to talk about tonight. This is what this table could look like if we were to do the taxable bond refunding and apply $24 million of college funds. The middle column, the total revenue remains the same, and the total bond cost column goes down. And I'll show you how that happens and what the impact would be. But with the total debt service reduced, obviously we produce, after year 22, we have surpluses. So the revenues are higher than the debt service costs. And from 25 on, it's projected at about $1.7 million per year. On slide 6 is, there are 2 components to this, as I mentioned on the slide. To refund the 2012 A's and the 13 B's, our analysis took into account a contribution of $24 million of college funds and the remainder of the refunding accomplished through issuing a taxable bond issue. Now, the reason we can't do this refunding as a tax-exempt issue is because you can only refund bonds 90 days within the call date. And if we go back to the other slide, you can see that the call dates were the end of 22, and the most impactful refunding was the end of 2023. So the idea of issuing bonds today to take advantage of the market, which is at unbelievably historic lows, is to do a taxable bond issue now. And if you did do a taxable bond issue now, slide 6 shows you what the debt service would look like. It's bumping in and out, but as you'll see in the next slide, there's a reason for principal being retired this way. But to keep in mind is that this taxable bond issue in today's rates, even with being conservative by adding like 0.3% or 30 basis points and doing conservative assumptions, we are bringing the interest rate down to about 2.3%. And as I mentioned, the outstanding bonds, the 13 B's are at 5.2, and the 2012 A's are 3.25. So we're getting rid of those bonds, and we are then replacing them with 2.3% bonds. On slide 7, it says debt service comparison, but what this table or slide is really doing is it shows you if we were to do the refunding, what the savings would look like. And so if you go to the far right column, those are the annual savings that you would save over time if you were to do this refunding. So it's about 40 million over time. And as Jeff and the finance professionals like to look at this, well, we want to look at it not necessarily over time. What would it mean in today's dollars, present valued? So present valuing it, it would be about 32,000 in today's dollars. But again, you have to go back and take a look. Well, we put 24 million into the deal, so that's not savings. So we back that 24 million out, and the refunding portion itself, by doing the taxable bonds only, is estimated at about $8.4 million. On slide 8, that is just a very simple graph because I'm not very good with PowerPoint, but it gives you an idea of where the 10-year treasury is. And again, keep in mind, these are taxable bonds, and they are all priced off from that 10-year treasury. That's just essentially where municipal taxable bonds are priced. And you can see we're at a historic low. The 10 years around 1%, a little bit above right now in the last week or so. So it's a very good time right now to be issuing taxable debt. And if you look on page 9, there are two options, as I had alluded to at the very beginning. You can do the taxable refunding right now and lock in sort of the low interest rates, in the next couple months. Or you can wait until the call date, again, that 90-day period before the bonds are callable at the end of 2023, or at least that's the by far biggest chunk of the refunding. So the decision is, well, do we go with a low rate right now with taxable bonds, or do we wait a couple of years and do the tax-exempt refunding, issuing tax-exempt bonds to refund tax-exempt bonds? And in looking on the slide on page 9, what Jeff and I were looking at is we were saying, well, in the last 10 years, where would the tax-exempt interest rate have to be, the index, in order to have it break even? To do a taxable refunding right now and save the 8.4, where would tax-exempt rates have to be in 2 years? And what this shows is there's a horizontal blue line across, running across from the 2.5%. That's your break even, essentially. So on an index basis, it's the 2.5% relative to the squiggly line, which is the MMD tax exempt index. That's your interest rate. And so when you're looking at this chart, what you're thinking is how many times has historically in the last 10 years has that squiggly index line been above the break-even line? So there are a number of times it's been above, and there are some times where it's been below, especially, since 19 through 21, it's been below the line. And so the question really is, where do you think interest rates are going to go in the next couple of years? Are you going to be above or below that line? If you think they're going to be above that line, then you should do the taxable refunding right now. If you think for sure it's going to remain below for the next 2 years, then maybe you want to wait and do the tax exempt refunding in 23. The one other thing to keep in mind, and I don't know the answer to this, but I just put out there that if you're doing the taxable refunding now, you have a little bit more knowledge of where rates are going to be and where the impact might be on the college, as opposed to when you do it 2 years out. That's your new starting point as to where the refunding savings would then impact in 24, 25. So you're kind of moving out to collect those savings. It may be worth it, it may not. But the proposal here of doing the taxable refunding plus the 24 million infusion needs to be just looked at, I think, in this slide 9 as to which way to go. And I I can't tell you where rates are going to be. I can tell you where experts think they may be, but I don't know if they're really that knowledgeable either. So, and then slide 10 is the recommendation. I'll let Jeff maybe talk about that a little bit, his thoughts about this particular option.
Yeah, I guess looking at stuff just where interest rates have been over the last 10 years, and while they are lower right now, where are they going to be in 2.5, almost 3 years from now? Because the main issue we'd be refunding isn't callable until December of 23. That, from my side, I view the taxable rates are so low right now, and there's so much potential for savings and setting us up to be able to have a little more flexibility between the capital assessment fee and the tuition, you know, for fiscal year 23, that I think it's the right thing to do. You know, that we talked about taking the 24 million, primarily the money from that we got reimbursed from the state, and we issue the taxable refunding issue.
Does that mean that we would have to raise tuition?
This would give us flexibility not to.
Okay, how about fees? Will this allow us to not place a burden on students and increase their fees?
It helps with that, because I mean, it reduces the college's cost.
The slide on page 5, or slide number 5.
Right. Jim, are you doing it? This one, Trustee.
I think it's 5. Let's see here.
Yeah, the
It's
one you had.
670. Yeah, no. Yeah, that one. That's 5. That's the one that you're talking about, right?
Yes, in essence, right now, if we do nothing, we have a deficit going forward, just because credit hours have gone down. So if we use the 24 million to reduce our debt load, also reduces interest expense going forward, and we level it out over the remaining life of the bonds, you know, we have potential for 1.7 million in savings. There's assumptions here with credit hours, so there's variables in here. But the concept is you could reduce the capital assessment fee, you know, in the beginning by $4 or $5, and then a couple of years later, it bumps up again for another reduction potentially. The debt maturities the first couple of years with the 2012 issue is just, and it's all wrapped around the 2018 bond issue. It's a little messy for the first couple of years to really get the savings leveled out until we get out into 25. But it gives the opportunity and the ability not to have to basically lower the cost for students, you know, reduce the capital assessment fee to, you know, at that point, depending on other finances and other expenses of the college, I can't necessarily answer whether it be reduce a tuition increase, offset a tuition increase, reduce total cost. That's all variables kind of down the road. But it sets us up to do that.
Jeff, what's incurred for the additional cost to do it to the taxpayer, though?
These bonds are not paid for basically by taxpayer. It's student-backed debt. So
Okay.
it's basically all tuition fees.
Right.
Tuition fees, right? Okay, I wanted to make sure of that.
Yeah.
Is this the one that you're recommending? That is being recommended, I should say? Sorry.
Yes, to basically do the refunding, yes.
Any other questions for Jeff?
I think there's kind of one last slide where Dan would just kind of talk over about the timeline.
Sure.
Because it would still have to come back for kind of formal approval from the board. And I'll let Dan kind of talk about that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking for approval. I just kind of wanted to flesh out the idea for you, and be available to answer questions. The last slide, slide 11, is to 12, is to talk about the preliminary timeline for the refunding. If you were to go ahead and say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, let's capture the low rates right now, then it's about the first week to 3 weeks of putting together the disclosure document and to have the lawyers put together a parameters bond resolution. And the college wouldn't be called upon to really pass a parameters bond resolution until week 4. And the parameters bond resolution again says you'll approve the bond issue, but certain parameters need to be met in order to have it authorized by the board. It's the parameters resolution is what the board has done in the past with respect to its bond issues. And then the rest of the slide just goes through the process the next week, or once the board does decide to go ahead and pass the parameters resolution, we send the information to the rating agencies. We have a conference call with the rating agencies. We print the disclosure document to get it into the public's hands. Rating is assigned to the bonds, which is critical. And then bids are received on a competitive sale. At least that's what's contemplated right now. And the bids are awarded, and then 2 weeks after the actual competitive bid and sale, the bonds are closed. So it's about a 10-week process. This can be lengthened and stretched all you want. It would be difficult to compress it simply because we've got to allow that time chunk in there for the rating agencies to do their analysis. We really don't want to push them too hard because obviously the rating is very critical for the rate that the college ultimately would get on its bonds. So let me just add, Spear Financial gets paid when you do a bond issue. So there's my conflict of interest. But whether you do an issue right away or you do an issue in 23, I'm sort of indifferent to that. I mean, it's not critical to me to our firm, but it is critical for us to make sure that we come up with these options for you and to analyze them. Because if we don't, we're not doing our job. And I think there's a lot of good reasons, as Jeff has mentioned, as to why the market is in a good situation right now where this is an option that should be seriously considered.
Jeff, what timeframes are we looking at on this? Because some of us that are virtual don't have all of this that it would be nice to have to study, to go back and ask more questions on.
I guess ultimately that's up to the board. I mean, I doubt, to me, it would be for the March meeting is kind of sooner than later, just because we're toward the end of February. That be more probably the expectation, potentially the April meeting for the parameters
Joan,
resolution.
did the board receive the PowerPoint virtually?
No,
Okay.
we'll send it to them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you think April approval would be fine? So if they received it, does that pose a problem? Or we could send to the board and ask them to submit questions a couple weeks prior to what?
My only concern is that you're then going to have new board members coming on. And at that point in time in April, are we going to vote on something when we have new board members coming on? I guess I'm going to lay that into the board to think and consider too.
Mm-hmm.
What's the latest that we need to make a decision on this by?
Ultimately, I guess, is there a deadline? No. The deadline is basically interest rate exposure
Right.
if something happens and rates go up.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's.
What rate are we at now? Do you know?
Well, for the new issue or what were we refunding?
Refunding.
The bulk of them are 5%.
And
Yeah,
the
actually
recommendation.
5.2% is the
Right.
sort of the average rate on the 2013 Bs.
If we did the 2013A, what would the percentage be on that one, the interest?
There's not that much outstanding on that one. Dan, that one was a little over 3%, you said?
Yeah, it's 3 1/4. What it does is when I do my analysis, we look at whether that's going to contribute to the savings versus the costs. of doing the bond issue relative, to whatever bond issuance costs to that. The 325 does to bring that down to a 2.3%, still bring it down essentially 1%, does save money over the costs, and also makes the structuring to level everything out much easier. So it is also the first callable bond. So it has the most potential there with respect to the call. It's just the lower interest rate. The real bulk is in that 2013B bonds callable at the end of 23.
So is the board's preference, that's what we're looking for, the board's preference. If we would like to move to March, Joan can send the PowerPoint. Questions could be asked and answered over the next couple weeks, and then put this on the agenda for March approval, or we could send the PowerPoint and then the April election, the new elected officials would not be seated until after the April board meeting. So the April board meeting would still continue to be the existing trustees. So we could send it, you could ask questions at March and approve in April if that's your preference.
Judy, what day is the April board meeting?
Oh, it should be the second Tuesday in April. Let me see. April 14th.
The canvass of election will not have been issued by then. So
Right.
You're right. That 28-day period won't begin to run until after
Correct.
canvass.
So we still have the existing
correct.
trustees.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend that we do that. That we wait until the April, just to give the other ones that don't have this a time to review and ask more questions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, so we can send that, Jeff, and then the next board meeting, we can put on we can add you to the business report again, just to answer any questions.
Okay.
Okay, it'd just be like a Q&A. Okay.
I don't know, unless any other board members have questions now. Trustee Washington? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sounds good. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This is Trustee Garcia. My suggestion is to, like Alicia mentioned, moving it to April so that way we can go ahead and actually look at all the numbers and all the different options. But no questions at this moment.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. Let us be able to review it at home here, and then we can figure it out. Thanks for the presentation, though. I appreciate it. It looks like it could be some good potential savings for the college. So
Great. Good to talk with you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you all. Take care.
good. Thanks, Jeff. Next item, 1.1.2, diversity, equity, and inclusion report.
I'd like to invite Dr. Escartina Irvin to the podium. If you recall, she was unable to attend the workshop, and we invited her to come back this evening and provide you with her presentation. So, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, first slide, please. So I like to show this slide because we have a lot going on in our communities right now as it relates to the social unrest, social justice issues, both in our community and in our campus. And a lot of work has been done at JJC, but sometimes things happen and we kind of forget to reflect on all the progress that we've made. So I like to just take a walk down memory lane for historical incremental success as it relates to DEI. On the timeline, you'll see in 1972, Dr. Charles was Kennedy was the first Black elected official in the Joliet area.
You-
Then in
I
19...
hate to interrupt, but can we blow this up? Because I can hardly see anything on the slide here. I know you're going to talk about it, just so we can see it a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's too small.
There you go. Can you guys hear the mic?
Yes, we can hear them. Like, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we had to take time, despite the circumstances before us, to celebrate incremental successes that we've experienced here at JJC. In 1972, Dr. Charles Kennedy was the first Black elected official in the Joliet area. In 1998, and many of you guys know, I don't know him, but I've heard wonderful things about J.D. Ross, our first Black president at JJC. In 2008, we had the Diversity and Advisory Council, and now that's considered a best practice. And over 10 years ago, it wasn't common to have those, especially at predominantly white universities, but we had one here at JJC. And then diversity statements, diversity councils are all best practices, and a lot of community colleges and state colleges are just starting to create these councils. We had one over 10 years ago. We had a diversity statement over 10 years ago. And then in 2017, Dr. Mitchell renamed the Diversity and Inclusion Council the President's Diversity and Inclusion Council. And when you do that, whenever you put the president's name behind something, it gives it the attention and seriousness it needs to be successful. But she went further to create a DEI plan. And that's one of the things that attracted me to JJC, because I'm serious about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a lot of times colleges and universities have this role, and it's just to check off the box. But looking at the historical progress and the DEI plan that we have, and all of the solid initiatives in the plan was attractive to me. Then in 2020, we had the council established and this office established during the pandemic. And it was an easy opportunity not to move forward because a lot of the roles had been frozen. We're up against coronavirus. A lot of positions were frozen, but the university, this was the only position that they did move forward with at that time. And that was a communication of how important JJC thought this role was. And in this case, a lot of times the diversity office is a kind of a one person on a one-off, but this opportunity came with the department and the support needed. And we have diversity consultants in place as well. So a lot of times we have setbacks and we have issues that happen, and we want to think that nothing's been done, but a lot has been done here at JJC. But we all know that there's still a lot to do, and I'm honored to be part of the leadership to continue to move forward in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you move the slide up a little bit, this quote from John Lewis is very helpful during those times when you get tired or you'll hear racial fatigue. We can't get tired. We have to be hopeful. We have to be optimistic. Our struggle is not a struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It's a struggle of a lifetime. And that's by John Lewis. And what we're all doing here in leadership, we're going to spend our lifetime here at JJC doing this work. But when we're done, we still won't be finished. We'll be passing it on to the next generation. Next slide, please. So the DEI plan has 4 theme areas: employment and hiring, campus climate, student engagement, and external outreach and business partnership. In employment and hiring, one area I like to point out there is our goal and to have our employees mirror our student population. And that's an area that we're working to grow and improve on. And with the campus climate, we want to have that sense of inclusion, and we're also focused on equity. Next slide, please. These are our four goal areas from our DEI plan. I won't read them all, but they tie back to those 4 goal areas. Next slide. Now, this is a DEI plan. This is kind of our roadmap, and you can locate it on the JJC website. It's very solid. It has a lot promised in it. It's going to be a lot of work, but I'm happy that we've started the implementation of this plan. And what we've done is we've taken the document. It's just a document unless you do something with it. And we pulled out actionable items. And each of those items have a chair and a co-chair and an executive owner. So the chair and the co-chair, they're responsible for action, and they're running it like a project. And they report out monthly via a scorecard so that we can see how we're doing and to make sure that that action is moving forward. If they get stuck, if the project is in jeopardy, they can reach out to their executive ownership to get things moving. So a lot of times we do a lot of stuff and we want to know what's working and what's not. So as you implement things, as you try to change the culture, you want to make sure it's working. So we have our PACE survey that used to be done every 2 years. It'll now be done every year for the next 3 years to see how we're moving the mark. We have our SASE periodic pulse surveys, and we have assessments. For example, with our cultural competency, we do an assessment after each workshop to see how it was received by our employees. Campus communication. This is an area that we're working to improve on because I've noticed that there's a lot of stuff being done, but it's kind of like in its own silos, and you have redundancy and you're doing something, but you didn't realize someone else was doing it too. So under the DEI Council, we're working hard to be more holistic and more jointed than disjointed, and we're trying to communicate out as often as possible at standing meetings, but we want to do even more than that. We're working to get more diverse in our communication so that not just leadership is aware, but every employee, no matter what area in the campus they work, have a high-level understanding of JJC's strategic plan and initiatives. Next slide, please. So I've been here a little over 7 months. It seems like a lot longer, but it's only been 7 months. And we're implementing the DEI plan, and we're also doing our cultural competency workshop, which has been amazing. We've trained our board of trustees, our president's cabinet, PLC, our leadership, and now we're rolling it out to the general campus population. And it's a 3-hour workshop, and it has been amazing. I'm present on 99% of the work that's done by our partners so that our campus can see me and put a face to a name and just start that relationship building. Policy and procedures. This will be an ongoing project. We're looking at our policy and procedures to make sure they align with JJC's core values and DEI plans and our institutional strategic plan. And we all know that policy and procedures can get dated, and we're busy and nobody really does a deep dive into them, but that's what we're doing. We're looking at them to make sure they're aligned with equity in mind and with our DEI plan in mind. We also have our diversity book club, which has been amazing. It has exceeded expectation, and we rolled it out as a pilot, and then we rolled it out to the campus and had 55 participants. And we also had diversity week for faculty and students. Next slide, please. And this is just more on the cultural competency workshop. Next slide, please. Next slide. So I had mentioned when you do things, you want to know, like I could think this cultural competency workshop is amazing, you know, but our employees might not think it's so amazing. So it's important that we assess ourselves. So I wanted to show you guys, this is just a sample assessment question that we have. We have these before the employees start, and then afterwards, it pops up on the screen and they try it again. So the question was, how comfortable do you feel addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion, including micro inequities that occur at work? And before the workshop started, we had 22% say they were highly comfortable, 50% say somewhat comfortable, and 28% said, I want to address these issues, but I really don't know how. So 3 hours later, we gave them the same question, and that 22% of I feel highly comfortable turned to 45%, and the somewhat comfortable 50% turned to 55%. And we had 0 employees who said that they wanted to, but they didn't know how. So in the workshop, one of the things we focused on was how to be an advocate and giving both employees and managers the tools they need to advocate for employees. So I just wanted to give you that snippet to show that just 3 hours later, that this information was helpful. And we don't plan for it to be a one day thing. We plan on putting some type of educational workshop out to our employees continuously throughout the year. But these numbers were from our leadership, and it's important that we give our employees and our managers the tools they need to be successful in managing this change in demographics that we're seeing in our campus and in our community. Next slide, please. We did something similar for the book club. So we had 55 readers, and we asked would they recommend the book. 100% says yes. And then we asked, since joining the book club, do you feel more comfortable talking about race? Because our goal, it was 2 goals that I had in mind. One was to just get the conversation going, because it's a tough thing to talk about, race, culture, and this book club and these small groups created that safe environment to have those conversations. I was in a small group. I shared things that I had never mentioned before. Other people shared things, and that's where the bond and relationship came in. So 36% said that they strongly agree that the book club made it more comfortable to talk about race. 61% agree, and 3% disagree. This book club has helped me better understand racism and privilege. 100% replied yes. Next slide, please. Another thing that my office is working to do is to identify key stakeholders on campus that I need to build relationships and to partner with to be successful in this role. So these are just some of the collaborative efforts that I've had since I've been here for the past 7 months. We have a reflection of resilience. I'm partnering with Kelly. We've been at it a long time, and we're very excited about that. An opportunity for our students, our community, our faculty and staff to come together and share in spoken word and poetry, singing, instrument, and it will have a creative effect to it. So we're excited about that. We had our MLK reflection partnering with Dr. Whitehead in HR, and we've been doing work with our student activities, our OSA organization as well. Our procurement organization has been working with me because one of our goals is to increase the number of contracts that we give to diverse companies, small companies. So they recently, you can go to the next slide, they recently partnered with the state of Illinois and created a training seminar that trains small businesses on how to become BEP certified. It was well received, and they had over 50 participants. Next slide, please. And their audience was minorities, females, disabled-owned businesses, small businesses, and they basically taught them what was required, the application process, what documents were required, certification options, and they gave them contacts where individuals could reach out and actually partner with someone to help them through the process. Next slide. more community service and committee affiliation. Joliet Chamber of Commerce recently created a DEI council. It's new, and I was asked to join and represent JJC. So that's one community initiative that's going on. We're also partnering with SMEC, who also established a DEI council. And it's where other professionals come together and we share best practices and learn from each other. Next slide, please. One of the focus areas, not one, but a huge focus area we have is our hiring process. And our goal is, as I mentioned earlier, to try to get our employees to mirror the population of our students. And it's not just a JJC problem, it's an issue that we're seeing commonly across the board, especially at predominantly white institutions, especially in the area of leadership and faculty. Students need to see themselves reflected in the form of their instructor in their class. And researchers show when that happens, we retain better, we have better student success. So those are some areas that we're working on. Next slide, please. These are just high level, some of the things that with partnership with HR that they're doing. And we know COVID is among us and the pandemic, so we're not recruiting and hiring and able to have these job fairs on campus, but these are some of the things that's planned. To do more partnership and networking with job fair opportunities that are diverse in nature, and I have them listed up there. We're also looking at our HR retention. We're not only trying to recruit, but we want to look at those retention numbers and establish a mentorship opportunity for new employees coming in, because we can get them in and spend a whole lot of money getting them in, but if they're good and they don't feel welcomed and they don't feel like they fit in, they'll go quickly out the back door. And our efforts and resources, both in time and money, have been wasted. Between 2017 and 2020, staff minority applications increased by 6% and faculty increased by 8%. So our goal is to do, what can we do differently to attract a more diverse population and get an increase in our number of minority applications. Next slide, please. This is an award that JJC got recently from Diversity Jobs, being one of the top employers that communicate opportunities to diverse networks. Next slide, please. And these are some of the job postings that JJC did, sharing opportunities to diverse networks. Next slide, please. So we often say that change starts from the top, and I wanted to show you this chart because this represents leadership at the cabinet level. Currently, the cabinet is 44% minority. Next slide, please. And this is the cabinet, and this is another incremental success in JJC's history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina.
I have some questions. Is it okay?
Sure.
You mentioned we are partnering, when you mentioned the 6-month overview, that partner, would that be the Kaleidoscope group?
Yes, we're with Kaleidoscope and ILEA.
Okay, and then you mentioned also that some of these actionable items in your fiscal year 21 action plan are going to have chair that will report monthly.
Yes.
Who are they reporting to? To you, to the president?
I think in the last report, they were in the packet for the board.
Okay.
And we report up through PLC and the Diversity Council. So, and we report up through the Institutional Strategic Plan, and that's given through Dr. Farmer's group.
Okay. And then you mentioned, like in goal number 1, that it said analyzing the hiring process and utilize innovative recruitment and training opportunities. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but our Latino staff here is who we're losing. We're losing a lot of Latino staff. And when you mentioned the board, the president's cabinet, it's reflected there, that there's a void. While it appears to be diverse, we're not reflective of our student body or the community that we represent. So those are things that we have to be mindful, because there are, and the thing is that through the training, I think we're going to better understand what is a microaggression. I don't know that people understand when this happens and how it happens and how it's received. I think we need to rewire ourselves, everybody. And this is coming from a Hispanic woman on the board, because I've been on the other side and I pick it up quickly. And when the sender of the message doesn't even know that they did it, and they don't realize it, and that's the problem, that it's just so normal that and then to acknowledge, oh yeah, I did that, I'm sorry. And I know it's with no intention most of the time, but it's training. It's a lot of this really, really tiny training that we have to continue to do it. And these conversations are going to be challenging, but we have to have them, and there has to be accountability at every level.
Right. I
So-
agree with you.
Well-
I agree with you. And like you, Trustee Morales, that's my goal too, that our leadership and our employees mirror our student population. And our population is high in Hispanics, our Latinx students, but the representation isn't, and we're working on that. And remember, I said we have to celebrate incremental success. The president's cabinet, that's an incremental success. And we
absolutely.
have to remember, diversity isn't just race either.
No, absolutely not.
It's culture.
Yep.
It's
Disabilities.
gender, it's sexual orientation, it's disabilities.
Veterans.
We're focusing on disability and accessibility
Yep.
of material and training. So it's all the above, and it won't happen overnight, but the infrastructure is there, and we are focused on it. And we are focused on getting those numbers up.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, speaking of incremental success, one of the bids tonight was for the respiratory therapy. I think 20% of the funding is going to go to BEP contractors, so that's a kudos. So thank you very much for everything on this report. It's very great, eye-opening, and thanks for your hard work.
Thank you.
This is Trustee Garcia Guillen. I have 2 questions and a comment. Thank you so much for your presentation with addressing all the issues and the next steps that we're taking as an institution. I was just curious, when you mentioned the book club, what books did you guys explore? Just curious.
The first book that we did was White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And the second book hasn't been chosen yet. It'll be recommendations from the campus and from those who participated in the book club.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Second question that I have is regarding the BEP certification. When you guys offered that, was it available in different languages like Spanish? And was it also available at different times? Because it really depends on the time that you're offering with the number of people that are actually able to attend and participate.
Yep, I can get that information and report back.
Perfect. And the comment that I have is, I think Trustee Morales already addressed it, and I think you also did it as well, regarding the importance of making sure that we have, that we're including people from different cultures, multicultural, multilingual at different levels within the administration and all levels of the college. So you guys already mentioned that. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehead.
Thank you, Doctor. The next item, 1.1.3, intergovernmental agreement with the Forbes Reserve District of Will County.
I would like to invite Cecil Lucy, our Vice President of Finance Administrative Services, to provide the board just with a brief update on an upcoming item to be voted on. Cecil?
Yes, good evening, trustees, Dr. Mitchell, staff, students, president's cabinet members, and guests. We have an intergovernmental agreement between the Forest Preserve District of Will County and Joliet Junior College. This has been a 15-year relationship that we've had, and the objective is that starting on April 18th of 2021, that they would work in conjunction with our students and our staff to remove basically invasive plant species from the Joliet Junior College grounds. And in addition, we would also support some of their activities. They have a major, what they call annual event, Bringing Nature Home native plant sale, and they would like to also market that event to our staff and students. So it's basically a relationship that we've had, that the expectation is that we will continue to do so and support our joint relationships.
Okay, so that will be for the March board for approval.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Cecil.
thank you, Cecil.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thanks, Cecil.
Before we move on to the rest of the agenda, I want to acknowledge Dr. Bob Marsink and Laurel Disco for the remarks during the January meeting. As JJC trustees, we appreciate and respect the information and feedback we receive from members of our college community, even when it is a little difficult. As the chairman of this board, I want to make sure our response is clear. Our community should be a place where all feel safe, at home, at school, or at work. Dr. Marsink and Laurel expressed concerns that were justified. This board does not support threatening language, violence, or racial injustice in any form. We are elected to guide the college through significant policy and financial decisions, and most importantly, support the greater mission of JJC. Accessible and equitable education for all. Joliet Junior College led the way as the nation's first community college, and we must continue to be leaders in what we do and what we say. As trustees, it is imperative we mirror the core values of this college. These values include respect and inclusion. This institution is, as our president has publicly stated, supports respectful dialogue and exchange of ideas. I want to say that any comments made by a trustee that are not in line with these values are not condoned. Please know that as a board, we will work through this issue together to ensure that we as trustees live up to our oath. Thank you very much. And moving on. The next item, 1.2, moment of silence. I'd like to take the moment of silence for the following individuals. Teresita Terry Hernandez, mother of Michelle Lyman, Department of Adult Education and Literacy, and mother-in-law of Rick Lyman Facility Services. Allison Thune, wife of Dr. Michael Thune, Department of English, Philosophy, and World Languages. Arthur Urdelis, Senior, father and father and grandfather of Yolanda Zenowick in Records. Tim Ritter, husband of Christine Ritter, Veterinary Technology. Jim Wells, father of Mike Wells, Campus Police. Carl Marion Blank, father of Michelle Vale, International Student Services. They had two people, Mark Puttycombe, son of former Professor Ed Puttycombe, who is a professor of boy, can't even think of it anymore. But and his wife Lulu Puttycombe, who was the former librarian. Ed Puttycombe was the Doctor of Education here, and Mrs. Wilhelmy, mother of A.J. Wilhelmy, former Senator A.J. Wilhelmy, who was a friend of JJC. Thank you very much. Moving on.
Jim, do we have our trustees?
It shows we're still spotlighting Cecil though.
I want to call to your attention, we lost video, so if we're going to go forward with approvals, I don't know if our board members are on. They're on? Yeah, they're all on. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay.
We're good? Good to
We're
go?
good.
Next item, recognition of special guests. Other than everybody here, John, do we have any extra special guests?
I think we do. We have the Rivera family.
Well, all right, then moving on to item 1.3.1, resolution of requisition of Rich Rivera. And, seeing as how I'm like the oldest guy here except for Rich and Shirley, I'm going to read it. So Nancy, you want to come up to the front here so I can give you this resolution? Whereas Rich Rivera is a loyal and dedicated employee of Joliet Junior College from March 1974 to December 2020 for over 46 years. Service in the Facility Services Department, working his way up from student groundskeeper, custodian, to assistant director, facility services. And whereas Rich Rivera was a member of several committee associations, as well as the chief union steward for local number 7, International Brotherhood of Firemen and Oilers. And whereas Rich Rivera was a member of the Joliet Junior College Alumni Association, serving several terms as president and vice president, award value recipient, and was the current chairman of the Grounds Advisory Committee. And whereas throughout his years of service, Rich Rivera demonstrated admirable support for the ideals of education, as well as for the institution, Joliet Junior College, and the people for whom college serves. Whereas service performed throughout his years at Joliet Junior College was always of the highest standards of professionalism, quality, and excellence. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Illinois Community College District Number 525, Joliet Junior College, counties of Will, Grundy, Kendall, LaSalle, Kankakee, Livingston, and Cook, State of Illinois, is hereby recognize and commend Rich Rivera for his distinguished service, as well as for his diligence, perseverance, and loyalty in executing those duties as herein stated. Adopted the 17th day of February.
It's like the thing from that. We had a lot of friends here. We love this place. Our whole life revolved around it. My children grew up on the campus on the outside every weekend, came out here. We worked on the inside so much, but we were always here on the outside. It's just been part of our life. I hope to continue with it. Thank you.
Have a motion to approve the resolution.
So.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Now, the next item is 1.3.
Yeah, we lost volume, guys.
We have a motion to approve. All in favor?
Don't hear it.
We can't hear anything.
No.
Okay,
Hold on.
Rivera family don't leave yet.
Don't
There's
leave.
one other item.
Can you hear us, Jake? Maureen?
Now we can.
Now we can.
That's
Can you hear
better.
us?
Yes.
Okay. We had a motion and a second to approve the resolution for Rich Rivera. It was all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next item is item 1.3.2. The Board of Trustees approves the naming of Centennial Drive to Richard T. Rivera Way. Can I have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Motion.
Joe, would you call the roll, please?
Morales,
Yes.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Broderick,
Aye.
Garcia Guillen,
Yes.
Mahalik,
Yes.
and Wonderlich.
Yes. So Texas got his own road now.
Rivera family, you'll be called back when the weather breaks, maybe June, when we have the formal naming, and then we'll change the sign.
Change the sign up, yeah. Thanks, Dan. All right, moving on.
We can't hear you.
It's gone down again, guys.
Are we good? Can you hear us now?
Good? Can everybody hear us?
Now.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, 1.4.1, proclamation designating March as Women's History Month. Dr.
Okay.
Mitchell?
Yes, the proclamation reader for the Women's History Month is Guadalupe Median. Guadalupe is a student at Joliet Junior College studying computer science and minoring in business administration. She loves being involved on campus and going to events that will not only be fun, but help her in her future. A fun fact about Guadalupe is that she loves to drink bubble tea and eat ramen. So Guadalupe, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for allowing me to do the proclamation. All right, I will do that now. Whereas, American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation and community in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas, American women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of the life of the nation and constitute a significant portion of the labor force inside and outside of the home. And whereas, American women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. And whereas, American women were particularly important in the establishment of early, charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation and community. And whereas American women have been leaders, not only in securing their rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, and the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other social and political movements. And whereas American women deserve all the rights, privileges, and acknowledgments afforded of all human beings in our society. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Illinois Community College District Number 525, Joliet Junior College, counties of Will, Grundy, Kendall, LaSalle, Kankakee, Livingston, and Cook, and the state of Illinois hereby recognize and salute the women of our nation and community, and designate the month of March as Women's History Month in Illinois Community College District Number 525, adopted this 17th day of February 2021.
Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve proclamation. Joan, call the roll, please.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Broderick,
Aye.
Garcia Guillen,
Yes.
Mahalik,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
and Wonderlich.
Yes. Next item, 1.4.2, recognition of retiree Susan Gordoram.
Whereas Susan Gorham has been a loyal and dedicated employee of Joliet Junior College from October 2009 to January 2021 for 12 years of service as an adjunct instructor in the adult education department. And whereas throughout her years of service, Susan Gorham has demonstrated admirable support for the ideals of education as well as for the institution of Joliet Junior College and the people whom the college serves. Whereas the service performed throughout her years at Joliet Junior College has always been of the highest standard of professionalism, quality, and excellence. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Illinois Community College District Number 525, Joliet Junior College, counties of Will, Grundy, Kendall, LaSalle, Kankakee, Livingston, and Cook, State of Illinois, does hereby recognize and commend Susan Gorham for her distinguished service, as well as for her diligence, perseverance, and loyalty in executing those duties, and herein stated, adopted this 17th day of February 2021. She here? No?
Have a motion and a second, please.
Thank
So
you.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Joan, call the roll, please.
Broderick,
Aye.
Garcia Guillen,
Yes.
Mahalik,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
and Wonderlich.
Yes. Next item, 1.4.3, recognition of retiree Elizabeth Collins. Well, you can do whatever you want.
Whereas Elizabeth Collins has been a loyal and dedicated employee of Joliet Junior College from May 2005 to May 2020 for 15 years of service as an adjunct instructor in the business department, and whereas throughout her years of service, Elizabeth Collins has demonstrated admirable support for the ideals of education as well as for the institution of Joliet Junior College and the people whom the college serves. Whereas the service performed throughout her years of Joliet Junior College has always been of the highest standard of professionalism, quality, and excellence. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Illinois Community College, District Number 525, Joliet Junior College, counties of Will, Grundy, Kendall, LaSalle, Kankakee, Livingston, and Cook, State of Illinois, does hereby recognize and commend Elizabeth Collins for her distinguished service as well as for her diligence, perseverance, and loyalty in executing those duties as herein stated, adopted the 17th day of February, 2021. And is she here?
I don't believe so.
Thank you, and can we have a motion and a second to approve this recognition?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Joan, call the roll, please.
Morales?
Yes.
O'Connell?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Wilkinson?
Yes.
Broderick?
Yes.
Garcia Guillen?
Yes.
Mahalik?
Yes.
And Wonderlich.
Yes. Next item, 1.4.4, Faculty Union Rep, Dr. Robert Barsing.
Hello, Robert. Hello, everybody. Want me to take, can you hear me? Or I might take this off. Couple of things before I get into prepared remarks, which are, I'm revising as I stand here, based on some things that have already been said this evening. First, I want to, where's this? There you are. Thank you for your report, and I promise you, faculty will continue to work with you to make sure that we diversify our group, because it has to happen, and we want to see it happen. So, thank you. One other thing I wanted to say was one of the student group. First of all, I'm so proud of our students, but now anyway, one of the things that was said earlier, what happens with students sometimes, and this is true, is they conflate administration and the board. And that's understandable. I would have done that too. But I do want people to know that there are two different entities. There's the administration, which runs the day-to-day operation, and then there's the board, which oversees the operation. And maybe not everybody fully understands that. So sometimes one group might get blamed for something the other group does or doesn't do or whatever. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, or anybody who's watching or listening. I was very proud to hear our students' comments earlier. I love the fact that they stood for principles and that they stood together. That's what I really love to see, is that two important groups on campus, Black Student Union and Latinos Unidos, stood together and condemned the remarks that were made on the Facebook by Trustee Broderick. I think that was, I love to see that. I mean, that because sounds trite, but they are our future. And as we move forward, these are not prepared remarks, you can probably tell. As we move forward in this century, they are going to be our new leaders. They're going to be the people who change the things that we haven't changed yet, fix the things that we haven't fixed yet. And to see that they're standing together, that's wonderful. And I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but more than 40% of our students on campus are students of color. I think around 56, 57% are, if we look at our demographics, are white. The rest are students of color, and and a lot of people don't know that. So I want that to be known by a lot of people out there who aren't aware of the makeup of our campus. One of the things I love about teaching on this campus is that in my home state of Pennsylvania, it's not nearly as diverse. I've said this before, and when I come back, I feel more at home here in many ways than I do there because of the luck I've had in being able to work in a diverse community. To get to my somewhat prepared remarks, although I'm going to skip some of them, I do want to thank Chairman Wunderlich for his remarks a little while ago. I appreciate that he responded to my concerns and those expressed by Laurel at our last meeting. And I especially want to thank you for your leadership in working through this process, because it is going to be a process. as you already know, and this might be a little redundant, students have reached out to us, staff and faculty, during these since my comments and since the last couple of board meetings, et cetera. I've heard from a number of people. I've heard from people on campus. I've heard from faculty, staff. I've heard from people off the campus, and many of them are expressing anxieties as we navigate through these difficult times. These are difficult times for everybody, but even more so for certain segments of our society. I heard a couple of terrible stories, which I'm not even going to go into those, as I told you some stuff last time. But and besides that, all of us are dealing with the tensions. Many of us, I should say, are dealing with tensions inside our own families, where we're getting information from different sources. We're and we're arguing, and we're not talking to each other and talking with each other. And a lot of that has to do with disinformation that is sent across our social media. And I don't mean misinformation. Misinformation and disinformation are two different things. Misinformation is just bad information. Disinformation is stuff that is intended to hurt or intended to deceive, intended to create an alternative reality. And we're all dealing with that. We're all dealing with that. So what I want to say tonight, and we're also dealing with a pandemic, in case any of you might have remembered that, once in a century pandemic. The tension, the anxieties, everything is incredibly high with everybody. But the other things we can't control are only going to get better if good people say enough is enough. If good people refuse to turn a blind eye to ignorance, to intolerance, to irrational hatred. My God, does that take a lot of energy to hate? Mm-hmm. And instead look it in the eye and say, no, no more, none of this. Not today, not tomorrow, not in our house. This is our house. And only we can stop it. The people in this room, the people who come in and out of these doors, and the people in our community. If I know anything, and a lot of people will tell you I think I know a lot more than I do, I know that a bully never stops until they are stopped. Okay? They prey on the weak. They nourish themselves on that weakness. But I do also know this. They cower in the face of strength. They back down every time. Every bully I have ever met, frankly, is deep down is a coward. Okay. The other thing I notice about bullies is they don't apologize. Bullies don't apologize because somehow in their minds they think that is weakness. To say I made a mistake, my God, that's anything but weakness, it's strength. But people feel that way. Oh my God, I can't apologize. Oh no, that's weak. No, it's strength. Say I'm sorry once in a while. It feels pretty good. I get a lot of opportunities to do. Okay. So anyway, what we need, and I think this started tonight, and I really appreciate the comments from Chairman Wunderlich, Robert. That's why we believe that the board needs to demonstrate with action to our students, to our staff, our faculty, and our community that you have our backs, okay? That you won't tolerate intolerance, that you won't allow anyone who sits on this board now or in the future to use their platform in any way that does not adhere to our core values, which we've heard earlier tonight. Several people brought up core values, and they're important. We proudly post them on our websites. We proudly put them up in our hallways. We put them in our classrooms. They're values that we insist students, staff, administration, and faculty practice. And we need the board to do the same. Now, obviously, you can't fire each other. Okay, I know that. Everybody knows that. Only the voters have that right. Okay, but we believe and I say we as faculty believe that means you must police yourselves. What form that takes is clearly in your hands. But to fully regain the trust of the college community that you serve and the community at large, you have to make it clear that you will hold yourselves accountable and that you will sanction anyone who cannot or will not adhere to the core values of the institution. By doing that, you will have our backs. By doing that, you will demonstrate that we truly are a united JJC family. By doing that, you will allow the campus community to begin the healing process. And that's what needs to take place now. Inaction, unfortunately, or lack of action, or leaving it hang there, will leave this ugly episode as an open sore. And I don't think anybody here wants that. I don't think any of us want that. So that is the culmination of my comments for this evening. As always, I thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. And I love this place. And I should say one thing about Rich Rivera. And this will make me cry, but great, great man. Everybody on this campus who knew him thought the world of him. And with that, I shall leave. Thank you.
Can I make a comment, Chairman Wonderlich?
Absolutely.
Dr. Marsing, thank you so much for your comment. Personally, I have had a lot of anxieties and taken a lot of phone calls about these comments, and I don't want people at the college community or in the entire District 525 to, for a moment, think that there is inaction and that there is no accountability in this board, because there should be. So on behalf of the board, as a board member, no, I can't say on behalf of the board. I can't, because I don't represent the entire board, just myself as a trustee. I want to apologize for any offense that came from this seat, because I feel it and I'm sorry. And I just want to say that I apologize, that I don't support that. And the accountability, we have to police each other, and there has to be accountability. Just because we're elected officials doesn't mean that we are above reproach. We have to be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Marsink. Very, very appropriate. Is Laurel with us tonight?
No. Not this evening.
Nothing from adjunct. Moving on, minutes. Could I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes if there are no additions or corrections at a regular monthly meeting of January 20th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Joan, call the roll, please.
Morales?
Yes.
O'Connell? O'Connell? Washington?
Yes.
Wilkinson?
Yes.
Roderick?
Aye.
Garcia Guillen?
Yes.
Mahala?
Yes.
And Wonderlich.
Yes. Approval of the minutes of the electoral board of the special meeting. I guess I don't know what the date was, but approval of the last minutes of the electoral board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or additions or corrections?
Are all of the board members voting on this, since all board members were not involved in it, just the three of you were?
Just the three of us, that were the only ones that were there. Okay, Joan, call the roll, please.
Mahala?
Yes.
Morales?
Yes.
And Wonderlich.
Yes. Next item, communications. Any further communications, Ms. Tierney?
No further communications, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, item 1.7, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Joan, call the roll, please.
Broderick,
Aye.
Garcia Guillen,
Yes.
Mahala,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
and Wonderlich.
Yes. Item 1.8.1, approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. No discussion. Joan, call the roll, please.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Broderick,
Aye.
Garcia Guillen,
Yes.
Mahala,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
and Wonderlich.
Yes. Moving on down to no student developed action, retired, new business, old business. New business, old business, cannabis industry discussion.
Yes, the cannabis industry. So other community colleges are putting out workshops to kind of coach people that are interested in going into this industry on how to place bids. I was informed of one that we're doing, I believe April 22nd. And I believe it's only offered through virtual. So my question is, I'd like to see more of these offered. We're always looking for, I know our Joliet City Council is constantly under fire about economic development. And now that this industry has been legalized, I think this is an opportunity that we should be partnering and really, we are a community college. We can't expect the four-year universities to put these events on. I mean, if they did, that'd be great. But I think this lines up with our values and who we are. And I would like to maybe see if we can offer more of these and free. We should be offering them for free for people. Or at a minimal cost, because I believe this one was $200. And if you're a small business, you're just trying to keep your lights on right now in the middle of a pandemic. But if we can somehow work with our different, chambers and partner with our community organizations to offer more of these discussions or workshops to help people that are interested and maybe do them in English and Spanish. I just think it's a great opportunity, and I would like to see us be a little bit more aggressive in offering these kinds of workshops and doing more outreach for economic development purposes.
Can I respond?
Yes, please.
So I actually, because of your email, so thank you very much. Dr. Gray is actually on tonight just to provide some additional information and and answer some of those questions. So if it's okay, I'd like to turn to Dr. Gray.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, board. I'm Dr. Mitchell, President's Cabinet, and guest. Yes, I appreciate the heads up on questions because it gave me an opportunity to not only look to see what we're doing, but also look at what other schools are doing. So just some information to share. Right now, we're offering through our Corporate Community Services Department. It's called Dispensary Agent Training and Certification. We've done it twice already, and we did have a good turnout. So we have scheduled another one for April 22nd. But when we're putting programs together, one of the first things that we do is we do a market survey. How many jobs are out there? And it's been a little bit more difficult finding this information because the legalization for cannabis use for recreational use has only been legal in Illinois for 1 year. So then what kind of added to this issue is that due to COVID, the state has not been awarding the dispensaries certification, and they have to have those to start. So we did identify, actually Dr. Mitchell identified a dispensary owner. He's waiting on his license and is ready to start a business actually right across from the college. right at Hobolt and McDonough, I believe. And so we are in talks with him to see how we can connect what we're doing with what he is doing. He's very community centered. And so kind of like you said, Trustee Morales, we do have people in the community that are interested in this. But what I was going to say about the jobs. So on February 12th, we did a market survey. How many jobs are in the Will County area? We came up with 52 jobs, but they're kind of all over the place, like an armed security officer, a human resource associate, a cultivation technician. That was something that we're more interested in, medical doctor, sales associate. It seems like the market that our competitors, such as Olive Harvey, actually my friend has started that program. Moraine Valley has done the same. They are aiming their course content at like a cannabis retail specialist. But for those graduates to have jobs, we have to have the dispensaries, and we've been waiting on the state to award these certifications. But in the meantime, the minute those certifications are awarded to the business owners, we want to be ready. So we've put together 3 other courses that are very, well, I'll just tell you what they are. One is a Cannabis Entrepreneurship, which is a 16-hour course. It covers things like cannabis industry history, business idea development, market research, things like that. The second course is called OSHA for the cannabis industry. And then the third one is, and we've heard from our community partners and some of our advisors that infusion and food science classes is something that is gaining more traction. We have a beautiful culinary facility, and we think that it's also a little bit different than what the other schools are doing. So we are ready, and we are ready to provide these courses. We are working with Illinois Equity Staffing, which is a state-approved training provider. But we are waiting for the state, and we understand, matter of fact, this month, they're going to be releasing 75 additional dispensary certifications. So we are working on that. And I'm excited about this as well. We also, in addition to just the corporate and community services side, our agricultural department is interested in CBD, and we are looking into grants about that. You know, you see these places popping up everywhere, even in the mall, for goodness sake, where they are selling CBD infused everything, lotion, you know, gummies, all kinds of things. So we also are looking into that as well.
Is there a possibility, this is probably a greater discussion at some point, but do we have to charge for this? I mean, I think if we offer like the first, I don't know, 50 people come in free, like we have to market it in a way to really grab people's attention and then ask them to send their kids to our college. We have to recruit from these programs.
But is that going to set a precedent for other things, people that want to come in and do things that we might want to say, well, we want our first 50 people for free?
Well, that's something we need to talk about. I'm putting ideas out there so we need to be creative and think outside the box or just give it, because this is such a new industry. Maybe we don't even have to charge for these smaller workshops, you know. I just want us to all think collectively out of the box and how we can use this opportunity to not only build economic development, but build partners with community, small business owners, our chamber's office, you know, to get the word out there. And, you know, we have to extend that olive branch, and our enrollment is down. We have to be very creative to recruit at this point.
I hear what you're saying, Trustee Morales, but we can't set a precedent saying that we're going to give you guys, you know, certain, you know, concessions, which when they get the job, they're going to be making money. And why don't we give other places concessions? You know, it's got to be equitable across the whole thing. So, but we could talk about it.
Okay,
You know,
good.
there's nothing, It doesn't cost to talk.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's what I would like
Doesn't
to
cost to
stimulate
talk.
us to talk and, yeah, have those discussions.
Dr. Gray,
Yes.
this is the recreational side. Are we focusing on the medical side as well at all?
Well, this course is called Dispensary Agent Training and Certification. And most of these, whether it's a retail specialist in a medical dispensary or recreational, really the only requirement to work is to have this certification. So we're looking at both, definitely.
Okay, thanks.
The other thing, just informational about, as you discussed pricing, we're charging $150 for this class. And I will say too, at first I was like, that does seem high. We worked with Illinois Equity Staffing. They are the ones that are approved to provide this training. They had suggested the price of $150. Actually, JJC only gets $50 of that $150. $100 per student goes to Illinois Equity Staffing. And so it's basically cost recovery. But that doesn't mean there aren't other things that we could do to attract students or to provide. I mean, we could brainstorm ideas about, maybe they come for one class and they get a discount on the second class. I think we can be as creative as we want to be and attract as many as we can get. And there are people interested in this for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for bringing it forward.
Mhm.
Good.
Mhm.
Thank you. Next items, we had the new business first readings, board policies, the old business second readings, the third readings were in the consent agenda. Moving on down to report to the foundation, either trustee Nancy or Trustee, whoever wants to give us a report.
This is Trustee Garcia Guillen.
Okay.
At this time, I do not have a report. Once we'll be meeting next, I believe it's next month, so I will be able to provide a report. What I did want to mention was one of the things that we have been working at the college and for a few months now is trying to get transparency and accessibility for language interpretation. So one of the main things that we were going to start doing this time around was making sure that we had interpretation services available for this meeting. And I know that I tried logging in to figure out how our interpretation was going, but I wasn't able to log in and receive interpretation in Spanish. So hopefully we're able to resolve this for our next board meeting, so that way we can go ahead and make sure that everyone in our community is getting the same information. Thank you.
Okay. Is Christy with us tonight?
Christy informed me that she didn't have a report this evening because she presented at the January board workshop.
Okay, that's fine. Moving on, ICCTA, Ms. Broderick. Any report?
You're on mute, Maureen.
Maureen, you there?
I think we lost her.
Well, if she comes back, she comes back. If not, we'll go to Ian.
Are you good on yours?
All right, we'll go to student trustee report.
All right, so for my report tonight, if you can go to the next slide. Just to talk about some of the events that are happening, because of course, last month there hadn't been too many events that had started by the time we had our first board meeting. So by this time, we've had quite a few. And the first one that I'm really glad to see after I talked to
Elizabeth Bell in the TLC, the Tutoring and Learning Center. They had a really good turnout for the TLC kickoff. She said that there were about like 20 or like 50 so people, and she said that their like numbers have increased drastically from last semester to this semester. So I'm really pleased to see that students are being able to get on and jump on these calls. And also, if you see on that bottom right picture right there, that's what the students will see, and they'll be able to click on those on the TLC website, and that's kind of a link to a group for whatever subject that they want to do. So when I released my response form, the one thing that I was discussing with them and discussing with the Tutoring and Learning Center was potentially just getting open Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, whatever, just open calls for students just to jump in and be able to see other students and interact with them. And that's what they've been working on for this semester. And I'm really pleased to see that, because I think that should increase and help students in getting their academics fulfilled and done, because I know that was a big struggle for me, was just kind of going up to my room and sitting down at my desk and feeling like I'm alone, but really, of course, everybody else is working, but I can't see that, unlike I would if I'm here on campus and I can see all the other students working at another desk, or being in class and seeing everyone working on their homework. So that's one of the big things that I was really proud of. And then there was also just other events with like Memory Magic. That was an event put on by the OSA, just some tips and tricks for remembering things. And then also the Student Wellness Podcast. And as you know, I've really been wanting to push the student wellness throughout, not just last semester, and I want to push it through this semester, because that's a huge thing that is affecting not only my peers, but older generations and younger generations. And I mean, just A to Z, it's affecting everybody, and it's a big thing that needs to be looked at. And the student wellness advocates are doing a great job in their department, and they are definitely answering the call from the students and from me. And with the podcast, they release a podcast, I believe it's once a month, and it's accessed through the monthly email, monthly report that they send out to the students, and students will be able to access that. And this February one was about dating, and they had a couple students hop on, and they invite students to be on the podcast and do a kind of questionnaire with them to get actual student feedback for the podcast. And then the Main Street Meetup is a substitute for what we usually do on the main drag here at the college, where all the clubs kind of get together and make their posters, anything else to just support their club and promote their club, so that when students are walking down the main drag, that they can just sign up and see what all the clubs are about. So doing that via Teams was, of course, difficult, but it's never too hard for the OSA staff. They're doing an amazing job in there, promoting things and getting the job done and making sure students are getting involved. And that was a really good turnout for that. Next slide, please. And then kind of looking forward on what's to come. Of course, we're seeking for a new student trustee, someone to replace me, and the OSA is pushing that out. We're pushing out through clubs so we can find the right person for this job to make a difference and continue what not only I have been doing, but what the student trustees before me have also been doing. And then also with the wellness programs, just again, keeping up with like the mental health awareness during this time, because it's the biggest thing that has affected me, affected my peers, and affected close ones to me. And of course, I have lost people to it. So it's something that I hold really dear and close to my heart. And then the leadership opportunities. Of course, a community college is a stepping stone in students' lives. So whether we're transferring to another university or we're just going straight into the work field, these leadership opportunities, building and growing us as leaders is a huge thing to do at the college. And again, the OSA is putting stuff like that on to encourage and strengthen our growth in that. Next slide, please. And then what the student government has been doing, we started our book club this semester. And it's, of course, so you want to talk about race. And every week we invite anyone to join our calls, to join our student government meetings. If they do join our calls, of course, they don't have a book on hand right then. So we encourage them to link to the PDF so they can watch. But if they want to continue to be with us, we will either allow them to stay on the PDF, or we will give them a book so that they can have a paperback copy and participate with us. And we have really good discussions every single week. It's amazing because we're very diverse across the whole club. So having these discussions, the one thing that's hard for me, of course, is because I don't have that experience. I can't. So being in the club and hearing the voice from my fellow peers within the club, and seeing kind of their relations to the book, to the author, and how it's affected them, strengthens me as a person, and also encourages me to just keep doing what I'm doing and just strengthen just my voice, strengthen their voice, strengthen everybody else's, and just encourage to kind of just talk about race. I mean, it's something that people are trying to kind of dust under the rug, I guess I should say. People are afraid to talk about it. One of my favorite things in the book, the author talks about how she was afraid to bring up talking about a racist comment or just bringing up race within her job because she was afraid of her coworkers kind of backlashing her for it. Someone shouldn't be afraid to bring up and talk about and establish kind of the boundaries and establish like something. If something's wrong, you shouldn't be afraid to bring it up. And that's one of the big things that I love about this book and love being able to discuss with my peers about that. And so I really encourage that if you guys have any open time to read this book, and if you really have any open time, I invite you to join our student government meetings and have a discussion with us. I know that they would love to discuss this with you guys, and I love discussing it with them. So if you want, you can join us. And then next slide, please. And then I love just finishing off with a quote, and just be who you are and be that well. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just be who you want to be. Don't let anybody kind of affect you in that sense. Don't let people kind of hinder what you want to do. And whatever you want to be, whoever you want to be, just do that well. That's really all that matters. That's all that it really boils down to. Thank you.
You said that very well. Very well. Thank you very much.
And thank you for allowing yourself to be part of these conversations. And really, your empathy goes a long way. Let me tell you, that's the first thing that builds a lot of trust and respect, is when you can genuinely be authentic and show that empathy. So thank you, Ian.
Yes. Okay, next item, 9.41, buildings and grounds.
Maureen's on.
Oh, you're back?
Well, this computer keeps taking taking me off of putting me on mute and putting me off of the video. So
Okay,
it's something with this
we'll
computer.
put you back on there.
Thanks.
ICCTA report.
Hi, it's a little bit long because of the fact that it's ICCTA as well as the ACCT National Legislative Summit that we were at too. So it's going to be a little involved, and Dr. Mitchell and Kelly Roeder-Tonelli will also be intervening with me on parts of the ACCT report when I'm done with the ICCTA one. So please bear with me. On January 30th, we had the Illinois Community College Trustees Association held their virtual Board of Representatives meeting. What was discussed was that the Illinois Council of Community College Presidents has drafted a letter to petition Governor J.B. Pritzker to include frontline community college employees in the state's 1B group vaccination schedule. Lawmakers have canceled most of their sessions days in February and plan to work remotely due to ongoing COVID concerns. The Illinois Board of Higher Education has recommended a 2% increase in state funding for community colleges and a $15 million set aside for community colleges monetary award programs grants, which are MAP. The governor will deliver his budget address on February 17th, which was today. We discussed the recently passed Omnibus Education Reform Bill, which was one of the 4 pillars of the Legislative Black Caucus agenda. 2 components affect community college. 1, the Development Educational Reform Act, which requires consistent placement across the state with new reporting requirements every other year. And 2, the Illinois Workforce Investment Board will study the feasibility of consolidating workforce development programs. The ICCTA is applying for a grant from the Joyce Foundation to research and collect data on the state's needs for community college baccalaureate degrees, which we're looking at the nursing ones. The ICCTA will not hold an in-person lobby day in Springfield like we normally do. Instead, trustees will focus on a hybrid approach of in-district lobbying and Zoom meetings with our legislators. We learned that the Illinois Community College Board has suspended the high school equivalency constitution test until December 31st due to a huge backlog of students. We reviewed the community college's 2021 federal legislation priorities, including higher education Act reauthorization, the Pell Grant expansion, and student loan debt forgiveness. We discuss efforts to increase college flexibility in spending down federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act grant, which is known as CRRSA. Oops. The ICCTA has co-signed a letter with other higher education advocates that seeks an additional $97.3 billion in pandemic related relief. We received an update on the development of the ICCTA's new strategic plan, which will be presented at our March meeting, which is coming up. We were informed that the ICCTA onboarding committee is producing a series of member online podcasts on governance. Topics will include trustee responsibilities and the Illinois Open Meetings Act. The ICC Public Relations Committee is developing a searchable question and answer database for the association's website so we can develop a trustees chat on it. We are encouraging our trustees to register for ICCTA March 12th seminar on the urgency to treat cybersecurity as a business decision, which will take place on our March 12th to 13th in-person meeting in Schaumburg for the ICCTA meeting. We are endorsing we're endorsing 2 candidates for the ACCT, which is Fritz Larson from the Blackhawk Central Region and Dr. Maureen Dunn from DuPage for ACC Director at Large. Our next meeting is, as I stated, March 12th to 13th, that will be in Schaumburg. And that is, there are also other dates of concern, and I think Dr. Mitchell is already aware of these. March 26th is the nomination deadline for ICCTA's 2021 Business Industry Partnership Award, Gandhi King Peace Essay Scholarship, Lifelong Learning Award, Outstanding Adjunct Faculty Member Award, Outstanding FT Faculty Member Award, Pacesetter Award, and Paul Simon Student Essay Contest.
Yes, we are. I work with Kelly Roder Tonelli on that.
And that's what I thought. I thought you'd be aware of it, but I just thought I'd make sure that we were all involved with it, knowing of it. And that concludes ICCTA. March 12th and 13th is up in Schaumburg if anyone wants to attend besides myself, who will be attending as the rep. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the ACCT held its Community College National Legislative Summit on February 8th to 10th, 2021. The first ever virtual National Legislative Summit brought together more than 800 community college leaders and advocates, a number comparable to last year's in-person event, despite the considerable challenges the sector has faced during this pandemic. The ACCT President and CEO, Noah Brown, credited ongoing advocacy efforts over the past year for legislative victories on behalf of students and communities that prior to the pandemic have not been since the GI Bill, the response to Sputnik, and the founding of the Great Society that led to the creation of our $120 billion national student aid system. Together, the two coronavirus relief packages approved by Congress in 2020, the CARES Act in March and the CRRSSA in December, included more than $10.2 billion to support community colleges and their students. An estimated $40 billion in additional higher ed funding is included in the next round of coronavirus relief proposed by the Biden administration that is currently being deliberated by Congress. Dr. Mitchell, Kelly Roeder, Tonelli, and myself attended the summit for all 3 days. Each of us will address the conference highlights, but to specific segments of the conference that we each decided to share. Since there's a lot of conference information, we decided to split it up between the three of us. I will speak about the overview of the 2021 Community College federal legislative priorities and connecting basic needs with workforce education and training. Both Dr. Mitchell and Kelly Roeder will address which ones they are commenting on and give a brief breakdown of the classes that they are sharing with you too. Let me give you some of my class so that you have a breakdown of that. The 2021 Community College priorities are provide stimulus support to sustain students and colleges through the pandemic. Community colleges are extremely grateful for the critical support provided through the CARES Act and the most recent coronavirus response and relief supplement. $97.3 billion is of new assistance using the CRRSA formula that reflects the community college student population. Strict state maintenance of efforts provisions are essential for this. They also are creating a dedication to community college job training program. They are supporting the Dreamers, enacting the DREAM Act. They focus on student tax on those who can benefit the most, and the taxation of Pell grants. Currently, Pell grants award can be taxed for any amounts that exceed a student's tuition and related expense. This means that community college students must pay tax on any portion of their Pell grants that is used to help meeting living expenses. Taxing Pell grants also prevents thousands of community colleges from receiving the full American Opportunity Tax Credit because of unintended interactions between the programs. It is counterproductive to tax benefits provided to those with extremely limited resources. Support student access and success. They want to increase the Pell Grant maximum award in FY 2022 while protecting the program's reserve funds. Funding increases should also be provided for the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grants, Federal Work Study, the TRIO, Year Up, and C Campus programs. They want to bolster job training in career and technical education. Enhance funding for Perkins career and technical education programs, adult basic and literacy education state grants, and under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and the National Science Foundation Advanced Technology Education Program. Continue to support dedicated community college funding to expand job training programs in-demand industries by increasing funds for the strengthening community college training grants programs administered by the Department of Labor. The first round of grants demonstrates its impact and colleges anticipate new funding. Reauthorize the Higher Education Act for today's colleges and students. They want to work with states to make community colleges universally accessible, promoting student access. They want to support Pell Grants for students in short-term workforce programs. They want to increase the Pell Grant maximum, and they want to invest in basic needs supports for our students. The true cost of attending community college extends beyond the price of tuition. Most community college students experience unmet financial need to pay for necessities such as food, housing, transportation, childcare, and medical care. The community colleges support policies that allow students to access vital basic needs services. And I don't know if you're aware that 1.5 trillion right now is owed in student loan debt. This has become the highest profile issue right now with our legislators. And that was the priority portion. I'd like to give you the other that was addressed on the workforce. The new thing about workforce education will be more important than ever as the nation emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. And millions of Americans need fast, job-focused upskilling to get back to work. Little is known about the community college workforce programs. DC is partnering with Lumina Foundation and Wilder Research to understand the landscape of workforce programs, working with community college workforce educators. In 2019, 58% of community colleges' non-credited students were enrolled in occupational programs, 16% in customized contract training for employees, and 42% in job-focused programs open to any qualified student. More than a third, which is 36% of non-credited students enrolled in workforce education programs earned industry degrees. 23% earned other third-party certifications, including government-issued certifications and licensing. Many earn more than one type of credentials. State formula funding and grants cover the cost of just 16% of non-credited workforce programs. Military benefits, means-tested federal programs, and foundation funding pays for another 16%. So thank you to our foundation. The principal source of funding, 42%, is students out-of-pocket tuition. Employers pick up about 18% of the cost. Community colleges ensure the quality of these programs with two methods. 96% of institutions design programs based on the labor market information and on employer input. 91% of courses that lead to industry certifications or licensing. And I think that's what we see throughout the country, because all 50 states are talking about it, because everyone is focusing on the workforce, getting people back in the workforce. They're also looking at the community colleges as being the solution for lower tuition issues, for getting people experience to jobs in less than 2 years, so they are back in the workforce, but also reinventing those that lost their jobs in the workforce due to the pandemic and businesses closing, which we all know that is countrywide. Enrollment is a big issue across all 50 states. Not only are we suffering, everyone across the state, it's worldwide that we are all suffering enrollment losses right now. And the government and the legislators know that we are all working to show how much community colleges mean to the world, because that is a solution for getting people back in the workforce. I would also like to address that we had several key people at our conference that spoke. We heard from First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, Carmel Martin, Deputy Director of Domestic Policy, Council of Economic Mobility, Dr. Michelle Asha Cooper, Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of the Post-Secondary Education at the Department of Ed, Representative Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of the Representatives, Representative James Clyburn, Representative Glenn Thompson, Representative Lloyd Smucker, Senator Pat Murray, Chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, Representative Bob Scott, Chair of the House Education and Labor Committee, Senator Tim Scott, Representative Raul Rulva, and Representative Alma Adams. We had quite a bit of people at our conference, and I think that it was well taken. It was 3 full days of conference, and I think Dr. Mitchell and Kelly Roeder-Tonelli will fill you in on the other activities of classes that we were involved listening to, and it was a great summit, different than not being able to be in DC, but I think we gained quite a bit in listening to what was presented to us those 3 full days. Thank you.
Okay, I agree. Kelly, I'm going to go next. So Trustee Broderick, you had a very thorough report. So I'm just going to cover some high levels of some of the areas that I spoke with. The first one is a look at the new lay of the land on Capitol Hill and its impact on higher education. The first, quick facts, House of Representatives currently has 222 Democrats and 211 Republicans. And in the House and the Senate, 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans, with Vice President Harris as the tie-breaking vote. Some of the agenda items that they spoke to, and again, you're going to hear a lot of, it was very thematic. The COVID relief bills and how they're structured with CARES and CARISA and how to distribute those funds. I can tell you that, we have reported at JJC with those CARES funds specifically, $2.7 million awarded to our students and was dispersed in spring, summer, and fall semester. The CARISA funds were recently released in December, so we'll be looking at that, not only for our students, but for our institution as well. They spoke to the possibility of restoring some of the Obama's bills, former bills, and more specifically with the Dreamers and the DACA students and talking about international students. They talked about their first budget proposal. And there was a lot of conversation about free tuition, the widespread debt relief, and outstanding student loan debt. But, as we continue to have some of the conversations, even with our legislators, there's a challenge because if they give free tuition to some students, then you're going to potentially have those parents that come back and say, well, we had to pay for our students and why are they free? And if you, forgive their debt, what about, the money that we paid out? So, so that's a very big topic in the federal, at the federal level to identify ways to help students, and whether that's lowering the interest rate or wiping off that debt after a certain time frame. So we'll continue to listen to that because we know, what that impact is for our students. They again talked about the community colleges play an important role, that we do so much work. And a part of that challenge is that there isn't enough marketing. There's not enough promotion across the country about the impact that community colleges make. So they're advocating for that marketing and how they can better support the mission of the community college. Again, Trustee Broderick talked about the doubling of Pell, or a significant increase to support our students, and looking for that short-term certificate type program to again help with that, for the job placement. They are promoting C Campus grant to help support our parents who are going back to school and help them to complete. They're looking again at COVID and how they can better help us prepare to reopen the campuses in the fall. Let me see. Trustee Broderick talked about the Reauthorization Act, and it appears in this session they said it appears to be dead in the water. However, it will be on the radar, and they'll look at that as they move forward. They did talk a little bit about the private institutions doing a little better because they have been doing it online. They've been teaching their courses online. And so, they look to that investment in community colleges to help us as we move forward. Again, they talked about community colleges do the work, we just don't get the credit. Again, they highlighted enrollments, the loss of first-time students and the loss of minority representation and what we can do to help. And then again, talking about the short-term Pell. The next one, higher education and the future of our economy. And I did not type up because one hand does not type as well as two. We did hear from Dr. Biden, which was really exciting to see her at the conference. She talked about community colleges are the nation's best kept secret, reference to the 2009 Obama administration when they held a community college summit at the White House, and looking forward to doing that again. So Kelly, we have to talk about that. We are the engines that jumpstart the economy. The Biden administration needs our ideas and they want to hear what's not working. They're a proponent of the College Promise program to make community college free. Again, there's a lot of controversy about that. We'll continue to listen, and looking forward to developing programs together. They again talked about, with the higher education future of economy, again, they talked about childcare and the increasing need for parents, talking about, rather than looking outside the box for your traditional early childhood center, that daycare, what we can provide in the evenings to support those returning adults or those that are working during the day, and how we can support them with childcare. They talked about the housing needs and workforce development, and the need to generate jobs. There was a talk about the racial injustice and equity, and it's a priority of the Biden-Harris administration. They talked about changing the course of the pandemic and what that will look like going forward. And again, providing relief to the working families in the middle and low income that so are in need of that support. They again talked about the $165 billion that they can move to support community colleges and higher education, and then immigration reform and a pathway to citizenship. They also talked about students seeking credentials, post-high school education and funding opportunities to support them, and ensuring that, again, the community colleges receive equal funding going forward. The last one, I know Trustee Broderick talked about the speakers, and so we were fortunate to hear from so many, but Congressman Lloyd Smucker, he talked about, again, his ongoing support for community colleges. He too was a community college grad, so it was nice to hear that. Looking for ways to support affordability for all students, and he is also a member of the Ways and Means Committee, so he will continue to advocate for community colleges. James Clyburn, House Majority Whip, he is the chair of the House of the Coronavirus Committee spending, so he's looking at spending efficiencies effectively and equitable across all community colleges, across higher education. He again stressed the importance of CTE and the debt for students and what we need to look at there. And then we have Bobby Scott, the chair of the House Education and Labor Committee, again, looking at affordability. We continue to talk about that across the community colleges. It's not only a local, it's a state, it's a nationwide conversation of what we can do to support our students. Tom Cole, the ranking member of the Higher Ed Appropriations Committee, open doors to opportunity, Pell grants. He's very supportive of an increase in Pell grants. The TRIO and Gear Up importance, the TRIO and Gear Up programs, which we have both at Joliet Junior College. And then Dr. Alma Adams, again, stressed access, equity, and excellence for community colleges. So that is my high-level summary, and I'm going to pass this over to Kelly Roder-Tonelli.
Okay. Move my mask here momentarily. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I think we're overachievers, so I'm going to pull a Dr. Barsink and maybe just pull a few things out from what I had prepared. So I just want to say, we've been going to Washington now for a while, and I was concerned about how this conference would go. But as Trustee Broderick and Dr. Mitchell have said, we had a lot of really critical conversations. And so, the important thing about going to the Hill is that we are there. They see us all in mass. We are all advocating together for community colleges. And particularly when those congressional members can hear the voices of our students and hear their stories directly, it's powerful. But I can tell you that when we spent 3 days last week involved in this conference, there is a collective spirit and a renewed energy in a bipartisan way for members of this Congress and Senate to support what we are doing. And I want to touch on something that Dr. Mitchell said about needing more marketing. Of course, I'm always looking at things through that lens. But what I think is really, really important is that each one of these members that we met with, whether it was one-on-one in our district or in larger group settings, didn't just say community colleges need to market more. What they said was, we need to market you more and be ambassadors for your institutions. And so to hear that was phenomenal. Moving forward, I just want to point out a couple of things. There's some case studies and some models that I think we really have some opportunities to emulate. One of the policy sessions we went to talked about the pandemic exacerbating, limited broadband access, growing non-academic needs for students and families. And that's something that we see here. And so there was a case study presented to us that talked about a student who had returning, or a college that had returning adult students or students going back to get their GED, who provided those non-academic resources so that student could go to school. Meaning, while that student is in class, maybe their spouse or their child is receiving childcare and a meal while they're there. Because we know so many times those are the barriers that keep our students from choosing to come. And so I think that's something, given the resources I know we have, something that really caught my eye and something that I thought we could look into and build on. Another quick thing I wanted to point out under one of the priorities, one of the big things that I heard that I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised to hear about, was that the Department of Labor used to have a grant process, and our friends in CTE who are on the call will know this well, our TACT grant program that started in 2010. JJC was lucky to receive one in 2012. We used that to renovate our welding lab, and our enrollment increased 100%. So not only did we have updated curriculum, we increased our enrollment, and that was through that federal grant process. That program unfortunately ended, but they did a white paper, and they understand now, a policy focus group understand how successful that program was. And so when we talk about supporting dedicated funding and support for community college job training, they're looking at bringing a program like TACT back. And it would be kind of a new and improved TACT, so take what they learned and not only allow us to invest in curriculum and facilities, but also provide some support for students in that process as well. So that would be new. So it was really great to hear that as well. Again, we've talked about across the board support for the DREAM Act. And then something that was really more of a conversation that we did not have on our priority list from the ACCT, but was brought up to us by our legislators in the meetings that we had with them, which were Kinzinger, Kelly, and Foster, was that they are really pushing the America's College Promise Act, and it has been reintroduced into Congress. If you remember, this is, well, it's certainly a hallmark of President Biden's plan for post-secondary education, but you might remember that this was launched by President Obama in 2015. And so this is kind of an updated version of that. And so our legislators were talking to us about that during several policy sessions. We heard from states like Tennessee and Michigan that have done this successfully. So for example, Representative Andy Levin represents the state of Michigan. And so he came to talk about what that could look like, a successful model across states, knowing that we all have different challenges where we live. And one thing I would just like to point out about that is that in this bill, that the America's College Promise, so free tuition for community college students, they would provide a federal match of $3 for every dollar invested by the state, the home state, and that they would establish a new grant program to provide pathways to success at minority-serving institutions by helping them cover a significant portion of tuition and fees for the first 2 years of attendance. So again, I know that that is there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpack in that act, but that was something that we heard loud and clear from across the board. So I'll conclude my report with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay.
And I have two more things to add that I had neglected, which was our virtual meeting with Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth. Senator Durbin, as you know, is the Democratic whip. He's chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's the longest serving senator for Illinois, too. He's supporting President Biden's $1.9 trillion American Reconciliation Bill, which is $35 billion for higher education and $5 billion for education. He is supporting Biden's proposal of a 2-year debt-free community college, 75% federal, 25% state. He's looking at the Higher Education Reauthorization Act. His aide is to follow up with that on details of that. There was no further clarity on the CRR-SAA funds and increasing who is eligible, which would be the DACA students and the international students. He has high priority to the DACA and the Dreamer program. Pell grant increase up to 150. He also recently abolished ban on giving Pell to those previously incarcerated. General Motors plans to have an electric vehicle in 2035. The question is, who will be building those charging stations? The career and technical education training is critical. There has been a lot of consideration given to resurrecting the Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College and Career Training grants. There is a high interest in that. And if you might not know what the career and technical education is, it's pharmaceutical technology, medical billing and coding, veterinarian assistants, medical assistants, CNAs, patient care technology, EKG techs, and phlebotomy techs. So there is a lot of concentration on those type of of degrees. There are students that are struggling, he said, for basic needs, which is food and housing. He's co-sponsoring the College Student Hunger Act, a partnership between the DOE, the Department of Education, and the Department of Agriculture to expand the SNAP support for students, which is something that Dr. Mitchell, I think, is going to be further looking into because it can be done on the campus as we learn through the conference. And then then Senator Duckworth also talked. She's through CRRSA providing $5 billion per state. Duckworth believes more can be done to support college students and is proposing a bill to forgive federal college loan debt up to $50,000. In regards to short-term Pell Grant, she supports debt-free college, not necessarily free college, but debt-free. Supports enhanced Pell Grants through the reauthorization of the HEA. And for the workforce, reintroduce previous legislation to support a new grant program, community college through Career Act, and similar to the TAACCT program I just mentioned. And veterans should have seamless path to getting a certification through community colleges for the skill they specialized in the military, such as the dispatch, CDL, diesel engineering, IT, medics, because they found that they're doing that while they're in the military, but when they come back, they can't get licensed because they have to go through a licensing program when they did that when they were in the military. She wants to partner with the Department of Defense and Department of Veteran Affairs to create a streamlined approach to certifying the military experience to civilian life and make years in the military count. She supports coal country communities through a carbon neutral approach. This can be done through many avenues, whatever helps us to get carbon neutral status. Looking to community college to support training and programs reintroducing the bill. And that concludes all of our reports for the ACC National Legislative Summit that we all pre-attended.
Thank you very much, Trustee Broderick.
Sorry it was so long.
Bills and grounds, Jake or Dan, or both of you?
We'll keep ours relatively short to conserve on some time. We voted on approved two projects tonight. One was the initial phase of the respiratory therapy build out. We received over 1,000 bids from vendors. Actually, no, we advertised to 1,000 vendors. We received 39 bids. And the final winning bid was for $122,500. And it went to a BEP contractor, like I said before. And it was Reed Illinois Corporation was the winning bid on this one. The second one was just for some miscellaneous HVAC repairs throughout the campus. We budgeted over $1 million for this. We went out to 1,200 vendors, received 18 bids, and the final price was for $768,000. And that concludes our report tonight.
Thanks, Jake. And Dan? Okay, so we're going to move on to the president's report.
I just have a few quick updates. First of all, I wanted to thank and recognize Michelle Rubal, faculty member in the LRC, for leading the Census 2020 initiative last year for Joliet Junior College. I received a very nice letter, complimentary letter from the United States Department of Commerce to Joliet Junior College as an invaluable member of the 2020 Census Community Partnership and Engagement Program. We appreciate the efforts you made in making the partnership program a success and helping achieve a successful 2020 census. So thank you to Michelle and to all involved in helping make an impact with the census. They did state that with our support, the region exceeded the national self-response rate of 67%, and we had the highest self-response rate among all regions of 69.8. So thank you to Michelle and everyone involved. The other item that I just wanted to highlight and note for Trustee Garcia, tonight we had the link live on our website that for community members to watch the meeting, and there was a drop down as far as they could listen to the meeting in specific languages. So I encourage you to reach out to community members, and all board members reach out to community members to make sure that they receive that link, that they're able to watch the meeting, and if they have any questions or concerns. So thank you to Jim and his team for making that happen, as well as the board meeting itself. The last item I just want to talk about and just highlight is, I sent the board, copied you on an email last week with the positivity rates going down in our county. We will be opening our campus back up on Fridays. And so I'm excited about that. We'll be open, have our doors open for students that want to be on campus, meeting, having some of the support services, library, some of the things they've been looking for will remain at 25%. Our goal for summer and fall semester, I've been working very closely with Cabinet, and we actually have a task force with the faculty representation with recommendations for the summer and fall semester. So, we continue to watch. There was a recent article out about how sluggish the vaccination program could delay a return to normal practices and operations and invite vaccine-resistant variants to emerge. So we continue to watch that. However, our plans going forward for summer and fall, rather than keeping the course maximums at 9, the college will accommodate the number of students in a class that can social distance so that the college is following all government and CDC guidelines. This will allow class sizes to increase in many cases while being fiscally responsible with faculty costs. Beginning summer 2021, the vast majority of labs will be face-to-face on campus. Also beginning summer 2021, the college will gradually bring back face-to-face lectures. Faculty will have flexibility to offer their lectures in a variety of formats, including hybrid. Special attention will be given to 12 and 8-week course to increase the number of face-to-face contact hours. Deans will meet with chairs this week to prioritize which face-to-face courses should be brought back to campus first. This will be based on program requirements, success rates in fall 2020 as compared to past fall semesters, student demands, requests, enrollment, and faculty skill levels with specific hybrid models. Chairs will be given a 1-week extension to submit fall 2021 schedule, so it will be due February 26th instead of February 19th. Through the task force, we'll continue to survey students about their experiences this spring to provide data that will be used to better serve student needs in the summer and fall. I'd like to thank my entire cabinet team, the faculty representation and the task force for their ongoing work and how we better can serve our students going forward for the latter of spring, or summer and fall semester. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Next item, Chairman's report. I'd like to thank everybody who came out this evening, either in person or virtual. It's cold, it's snowing, it's getting better. I want to give my heartfelt sympathy to Dr. Mitchell for a broken arm.
Thank you.
But I get my arm cut on tomorrow, so I'll be in a sling too,
so
that we can dance together.
Right, we each
Because
have
I got a
one
right
arm.
one, you got a left one.
Right,
yeah,
there
okay.
we go. Okay.
With that, thanks to all the public comments tonight. Thanks for everybody's reports. Dr. Everett, you did a great job. Kelly always does a great job. Jim, not so sure. Ian, you did a good job. Everybody else, thank you very much for coming out tonight. And do we need an executive
Yes.
session?
It should be brief.
It's going to be real brief.
We'll do our best.
Okay, Maureen.
Oh.
Okay, can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Under
For what reason?
C25.
And 2C1.
Oh, I didn't have 2C1 there.
Well, this 2C1 is the new item, Carl, personnel?
If you're going to go in under personnel, yeah.
Yes, okay.
2C1, 2C5. Okay, it's going to be short and sweet. When we come out, there will be no action taken. Can I have a motion to go in executive session?
We have it. You have it.
Motion.
All right, Joe, call the roll, please.
Morales,
Yes.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Roderick,
Aye.
Garcia Guillen. Garcia Guillen,
Yes.
Mahalik,
Yes.
and Wonderlich.
Yes.